Aleph is the front side of Keter. Beit is the front side of Chochmah. Lamed is the backside of Keter. Mem is the backside of Chochmah, etc. So that is the secret of Isha. And Likutei, you guys were introduced in that in the early sections of the 50 gates as the word man. And of course, it tells you over there not to take it quite literally, God forbid. But nonetheless, we can see this idea of these partsuf and how they garb each other in the light. So we see that the Sfirot is the most revealed king by his midot, his attributes: might, strength, loving kindness, truth, justice, righteousness. Letters are the root of these matters, and the letters are a garment for the endless itself. So we can see how they're in each other, as it were. Okay, all luminaries and all lights shine from the most concealed Atika Kadisha, because Atika Kadisha is the word man. When we're talking about the Atika Kadisha, we're talking about the Lashon HaKodesh Mamash, literally the Lashon HaKodesh, because it is the most archetypal garment of the Holy One. There is no das of the illimitable outside of Lashon HaKodesh. When you're actually utilizing and interacting with Lashon HaKodesh, you're actually interacting with the highest partsuf that God has placed for himself. The highest. It's even above the Torah. Why do I say it's above the Torah? Because the Torah is called Torah Bria for a reason, because it only deals with certain worlds. And furthermore, Torah deals in words, and there are no words without letters. And letters combined together equal words. Therefore, if there were no letters, there would be no Torah, which means that Torah is a byproduct of letters. If there are no letters, there are no words. And so therefore, the letters are far supreme and far above the Torah, because they are the root of the Torah, and there is no Torah without them. Thus, the same with the Atika Kadisha. It is the root of everything else. It is the highest garment, the highest partsuf. This is why it says he wraps himself in light. The word light is the value Ein Sof. And we see Vayera Elokim Etor Kitov, that the light is Et. It's 22 letters. There is no higher conceivable light. This is exactly the secret of what the Zohar said about the Mashiach, the reason why he will reveal the letters. If you guys remember last night's lesson, I discussed the secret of the Adam Katan and the Adam Gedal, the great man, or the macrocosm and microcosm effective, essentially, and how the Mashiach is the secret of the microcosmic man. Because in the world, there has to be a manifestation on the Peshat level of that which is at the Sod level. At the Sod level, the highest partsuf is the Atika Kadisha. Therefore, by the exact principle I just relayed, in this reality, there must be a representation of that light of the Atika Kadisha. That light of the Atika Kadisha is personified precisely as the Mashiach. This is exactly why the secret of why the Zohar says no one can understand the letters except for Mashiach alone. And why even supernal angels do not know the secret of the letters. Because the supernal angels are not rooted in the Atika Kadisha. That is to say, they're rooted in the outer partsufs, the outer garment. Okay, I'm back. Those are things for Pesach. Okay, so that's because the Melachim have no ability to conceive the lights of the letters, because the Melachim are rooted in the lower partsufs. It's certain he makes the wind his messenger, his Ruach the Melachim. This teaches us that that's the level in the grade called Yetzirah. There are also Melachs of the world of Beria, and there are some that are associated with the world of Asiya. But they're not in the level of Atika Kadisha, so the Zohar informs us directly the angels cannot conceive the secret of the letters, nor do human beings. The reason why human beings do not conceive the secret of the letters is because we're made B'Tselem Elokim, which means that Beria and below. And this is why in Shar HaGogolim, Chaim Vital makes the statement that there was no soul that entered in above Berea, that everything was from Berea and below, because the Torah tells us that we're made in the image of Elohim in the world of Berea. And so Mashiach comes from the world of Atzilus. It's called the poor and wise son, so on and so forth. But Atzilus is a garment for the Ein Sof. An example, Chochmah, which is called Atzilus, is a garment for Keter. There's no perception of Keter. Keter has no dimensional measurement until it's placed inside of Chochmah. Chochmah is the revealed Keter. Another explanation for this is the Keter of the Atik is we call the Ein, the illimitable. There's nothing to be known about it. There is no beginning to it, no end to it, no vacancy in it, no depth to be measured, no height to be measured. It is endless. However, the next stage, which is called the restriction, has measurements, and everything inside of there from that point forward has measurements. And so we see that there really is no perception of the Ein until the point of the restriction. And the highest measurement equal only to this place. And that is exactly the root of the Mashiach, which is rooted in the Atik Kadisha, because his light comes from the Atik. For those of you that have read the Order of Emanation, it's a very private document that I've compiled together to help expound the most sublime mysteries about the secrets of Mashiach and the secrets of the Atik, which was read by Gila in private classes. Maybe you guys can go see it over there. Nonetheless, there's a certain portion of it where I talk about the nature of the restriction, nature of the heart spark being thought and mind, and how the word entered into that, which we call the sun, which illuminated the mind and illuminated the thought. But because it was rooted in the endless, the mind and thought could not grasp it. And I was talking about the letters, because when the mind and thought, which are called Abba and Ima, which we call the restriction and the heart spark, in the beginning Israel arose in thought. Chokhmah is called machshava, right? The brain, mind. When the light of the endless poured in, it poured in the secret of the 22 letters. Because its shorosh, its root, is the illimitable itself, it was beyond the limits of the restriction, which means beyond the limits of the mind, which we call the height. And it was beyond the limit of the depth, an example, the thought. So neither mind nor thought could conceive it. This is very important for the necessary states of existence, because as I've stated, this is not what God is. This is the opposite of God. Everything here is the opposite of God. Every single thing is the opposite of God. And so what's the opposite of being an all-knowing entity? An entity in confusion, an entity in contemplation. For contemplation is the state of not knowing, seeking to know. And that this might occur, these two first stages occurred. And when the light of the word, the illimitable light, entered in, which is the word, which is the Atika Kadisha, who is the Shorosh of the Mashiach, it confounded the mind and thought. Thus the mind and thought fell silent. It was not able to contemplate. This is the secret of, and those who sat in darkness saw a great light. Those who sat in darkness refer to the restriction, which was called darkness. And those who sat in it are the first two steps, Chokhmah, Bina, thought and mind. They were in the darkness, just like our mind and our thought is in darkness. And it saw a great light, an example, the letters, at the or. So, thus, this gives you a little bit of a background as to some of the secrets that we're talking about before. Nonetheless, all luminaries and all lights shine from the most concealed Tikadisha, the word. That is a supernal luminary. It is a luminary because it is illumination of everything. The word is not just the illumination of the Jewish people. The word is not just the illumination of human beings. The word is not just the illumination of this entire universe. The word is the illumination of every dimension of existence, from this olam all the way up to Atzilus. And when you begin to conceive that, you realize we are nothing. We're like porch monkeys that poop and pee and lay down like a corpse every day. And we fail to realize where we are on the pecking order of spectrum. It is above all the melachs who are above us. It is above all the partsufim. Entire realities we can't even conceive. This is exactly why it says, when talking about the angels that don't know the alphabet, also says the supernal beings do not. them either. Those supernal beings refer to the higher partsus, which are manifested, individualized attributes of God himself. They too neither understand the root of the letters, which is exactly why I said neither the mind nor thought. And this also explains why in our reality, our mind, our thought, though we use letters every day, though we speak them, though our mind uses them to contemplate thought, all of our thoughts are amalgamation of just potentially millions of words that are spoken in our mind every day. And yet our mind and our thought cannot conceive the root of those letters. It's like having a refrigerator. You can use it every day. Doesn't necessarily mean you know how it works. We use letters every day for everything. We could not even process information without them. Yet we have no idea how they work. And this is an archetypal reflection of that state of contemplation that was necessary. So when observing within all light spreading from Atika, there's only the same hidden non-revealed supernal light. Because the Atika, when you look at the Atika and you know it's the 22 letters, and you know that this is the highest attribute of Hashem, that there is no higher than the 22 letters, and it's precisely the 22 letters, when you understand this, then you understand that this is a malbush for the illimitable itself. And then you see that all the lights are spreading from the Atika, there's only some of the hidden non-revealed supernal light. That is to say, we can only glimpse portions of it because it begins its restriction, it begins its definition. It begins to wrap itself in light. And the word man, which are the fronts and backs of the spheros, which create the divine pattern, which the Atikil Min would then embody tree on top of tree, is even before Sephirot. There were no Sephirot at that point. There were no Partsus at that point. Even though terms are used like Keter Vatik, Chokhmah Vatik, Bina Vatik, but in reality, those terms actually don't apply to those places because there's no Keter in existence. There's no Chokhmah in existence, no Bina in existence at that time. But the roots of all these things is what it's really discussing. So within these garments of glory, so the word glory is a very unique word because we know that glory is kavod, and kavod is 3 to 32. So within these garments of 22 letters and 10 spirot, that's how we should understand that. Garments of truth, which refer to Zoranpin, true establishments and true lights, there are two luminaries which establish the king's throne. They say here, which is Bina, and which are called righteousness and justice. They are Zoranpin, that is called justice, and Malkuth, that is called righteousness. That's what I stated before in the very beginning. Sedef is a quality called Malchus. Malchus is a saruf of Kal Maves, all dead. This is where our sages say Tzedakah saves from death. Charity saves from death. Why does charity save from death? Because Tzedek is Malkut. Malkut is a rearranging of the letters Kal Maves, all dead. Because she is the great serpent. This is why Malkut is the numerical value of Samael HaNechash, Samael the serpent. Why? Because it's the earth. It's the earth. And even though we say that the female Leviathan was slain, death means descent. We are in the female serpent. This earth this universe is that serpent. This is why it says all death, because the serpent eats what? The dust. And the dust, the Zohar has already told us, is all of those destroyed worlds. Thus, you all should have read the portion from the top of Atzilus to the resurrection of the dead, which was in this book not too many sections ago. I don't know how long ago you guys read that section, but it might maybe a week or two ago. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, in that portion, it talks about a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns down below, which is the secret of Malkuth. That is this reality, because we are actually in that female serpent, literally mamash in it. Thus, when it says we were garbed in a garment of skin, that word skin means nakedness. And that word nakedness also hints to the wife of Samael, who was called nakedness. The Zohar says this explicitly, and says that the serpent eats people because man is made from the dust. So they're very, very powerful secrets and keys. Now, why does tzedakah save from death? Because if you understand that you are in the female serpent and that reality around you in this level of the existence is that serpent, then you must understand how enlightening the opposite attribute, the tikkuned attribute of the serpent, causes it to behave differently. When people enkindle Malchus in a negative way, in an incorrect way, they sin, they empower this serpent's gvurot. And the word Adonai serufs into din aleph, a single judgment, a harsh decree, right? But when a person does the opposite and does not sin, that they do not cause to spill their seed on the ground, for example, because that's a desecration of this serpent that you are inside of. And the word seed is your forms. You don't project your forms all over reality to take what is a witness and what is a likeness, which is reality, and desecrate it. Then instead you embrace in charity acts of loving kindness, and you introduce a quality called tzedek, righteousness, and tzedakah, charity. You cause this reality to be pacified, and that serpent then changes its nature. It changes its nature so that reality itself, instead of seeking to destroy you, which is what the serpent would normally do, it then saves you from death, meaning it saves you from its other attribute, because the other attribute of this reality is death. Everything here is sustained by death. Everything. This is why they said righteousness or charity, tzedakah, saves from death, because reality will interact with you in a different way. Major important key here. Justice, mishpat, is the heavens, the malachim. He makes the ruach his malachim. This is the base din in Shemayim. This is the esh and the mayim, the fire and the water. These are your good deeds and your bad deeds. This is called justice, mishpat. But mishpat is a very unique kind of justice. As the Zohar told us, this is a unique attribute when dinin is intermingled with rachamim, with mercy. It's not the type of justice that's just strictly din, which is to say it's just strictly to punish you without cause. Like a parent who just beats a child and doesn't explain why the child was being beaten, or that they even have a reason to beat the child. They just beat the child. That's the quality of din. Mishpat is these horrendous things happen to you to ultimately introduce this quality of rachamim, mercy, to change you, to teach you a lesson. It's not just senseless beating that has no point to it. It's correction. It's correction. That's the quality of mishpat. And that quality of mishpat is hand in hand with this quality called tzedek. Because the one who walks in tzedek, righteousness, and the one who walks in tzedakah, charitable ways, will have mishpat, the quality of justice upon them, and not the quality of din. Because if they do the opposite and they fulfill her feet go down to death, and should they eat from that tree, Eitz Hadas Tovera, and go into their forms and spill their seed, which brings death, from the day you eat of it, you will die, then they will not receive quality of mishpat. They will receive the quality of din and pechad and all of these horrific attributes of the akhirah. And this is what Hashem said: for you will not see my face, but you will see my back. What is the back? To see the akhirah. It's the other side. And how did this come about? Because they did not illuminate the attributes of the panim. The attributes of the panim is sedech and tzedakah, charity and righteousness. And what's the attribute of the acharim? Maves, death. What's the panim for zer? Mishpat, What's the backside? Dinin and pechad. Fear and chama, terror, and judgment. Din, harsh judgment. There's a Pin that's called justice, and Malchus called righteousness. They are the beginning and the completion and the whole faith. Because once you understand that you're causing a zivug, the clearest way to understand Malchus and Pin, and even though they are on every level, I'll tell you the two levels you need to understand the most. First, when you think of Malchus, you need to understand this world. When you think of Pin, you need to understand heavens. That's the most simple understanding. Heavens, Pin. Malchus, this world. And you want to cause a zivug between them, you need to unite the upper and lower world so that they're one. In the second level, for the goof is Malkut, the physical body. Your forms, your mitos, that is Pin. And so you need to see that there needs to be a zivug between those two. Because if you hate yourself and you spill forms and you speak ill of your body and you speak ill of yourself, you're causing a separation between Pin and Nukva. And if you say of this reality and divide it from the supernal world above it, you are causing a division between Pin and Nukva. And when you cause this division between Pin and Nukva, you cause their attributes to change from the panim. I'll turn my face from them, and they'll see my back. And you cause them to be back-to-back pairing, which is what it said. Earlier you talked about it told you guys about the pairings, front-to-front pairing, face-to-face, and back-to-back pairings. The back-to-back pairings is what I just described. Front-to-front pairing is called nishikim, kisses. What does that mean? That means when you look at reality and you go outside and you see Elah separates men from Shin on a tree, but then you know Elah separates men from Shin is really the tree of life, mamash. Shin's keterak being da'as, alas chesavur tifres, mem zentakol yisad, mem sophisis malchus. Then you're causing nishikim, you're causing panim v'panim, you're causing a zivug between the upper world and the lower world. They're face to face. But when you don't see that in reality, then what you're doing is you're causing back-to-back pairing. Why do you cause back-to-back pairing? Because when you don't see it through the lens of the divine, you see reality through the lens of your forms. This is the spilling of the seed. And when you cause your forms to be the dictation of reality, your forms are rooted in the backside. They exist rooted through the backside. For the 7 sparks, which are the kings of Edom, when they emerge from the backside. And therefore you cause a back-to-back pairing. Because you're using your forms to define reality. That's the backside. You couple in with this reality, which then becomes covered. Another symbol for the backside. And that's what causes these pairings. And when you fail to see these things, that's where it introduces the quality of din and pechad and chama and all these other different terrible attributes. So, and with these, all judgments above and below are adorned. That gives the explanation for why it says these judgments are adorned. And it's very important to understand the nature and qualities of these things. Everything is concealed in justice, which is Pin, and righteousness, which is Malchus, and is nourished by this judgment, which is Pin. And sometimes Malchus is called Melech Tzaddik, king of Shalom. Melech Tzaddik, the king Tzedek, the king of Tzedek, righteousness. Melech Shalom, because Shalom is a key to Shalomah, because Shlomo means Shalom, means the completion of Hey. Malchus, that's why it's called Melech Shalom, king of Shalom, because it means king of completion. For Malchus is called Tzedek, and Malchus is called Melech, king. Because Malchut is the most revealed part of God, where his attributes are plainly perceivable, that he is the king of existence. Why? Because Malkuth is the very existence itself. And there is no greater witness to the authority of the king than looking at the universe itself. Simply looking at the universe and seeing 100 billion galaxies in the sky, where every single one of those stars are an entire galaxy unto itself, then you can begin to perceive why this attribute is called king, why reality is called king, because it is the very evidence, the very manifestation of the king. And it stays at a much higher level than any of the other levels, because all of those levels only exist by potentials. And those potentials go through stages into actuality, from potentiality into actuality. Malkuth, called king, is actuality. That's this place. So, when judgments are aroused from justice, they are all in a state of mercy and perfection. And this, again, is exactly what I've stated about the quality of justice, mishpat. Mishpat is not just din. It's a type of din when it's been intermingled with rachamim, mercy, and perfection. For this justice mitigates righteousness, which is judgments. Judgments are established and all descend into the world in perfection and mercy. It is then a time when the male and female join and all worlds are in a state of mercy and joy. This is caused when the upper world and the lower worlds, which are the male and the female, for the male is the heavens and the female is the earth, and it causes them to become in a state of zivug, dependent on us, who is the middle conduit or the glue that connects the upper world to the lower world. For the upper world's interaction comes about through the conduit. An example, through existence, meaning through living beings. Living beings are the conduit for the interaction of the upper world and the lower world. And so it speaks on that matter. So, when people's iniquities multiply and the temple Malkuth is defiled by their iniquities, that is to say, again, when people decide to spill their seed on the ground, and that is to project their forms, which is what the real root of the spilling of the seed means. And this is also the secret of adultery. This is also the secret of the prohibition of laying with your family members and all of these other things, which is all rooted in the spilling of the seed, because spilling of the seed is and the peshat means semen. But when you spill your seed into reality, then you're spilling your seed into another man's wife. Why? Because Malkuth, or reality, is the wife of the heavens. And so when you spill your seed in that, you have committed this act of sleeping with another man's wife. You're an adulterer. On top of this, this reality is called your sister, and so you've committed an incestuous act as well. And so you see where the sod of these mitzvah have come from, at least a small glimpse of them. This is why it says that they're defiled by their iniquities. This is the temple. The male Zerampin departs from the female, which means that we no longer begin to see reality through the attributes, through the corrected attributes, right? We no longer see them through the illuminated forms. Lift up your eyes and see who created these, mi bara ele. The illumination of the kalim filled with the illuminating oil, which are burning from the secret of Bina. Fire goes over his throne, the oil from the supernal Chokmah, the kalim of Zerampin, which is the holy menorah, which is burning with 7 branches, is no longer illuminating, but the menorah goes out. It extinguishes. Now, and the fierce serpent begins to arouse, which is exactly why I told you Malkuth is a numerical value, Samael and Nachash. Samael, the serpent. And it's very important to understand this matter, because you must understand that Hashem has created the one as well as the other. And when it says he wraps himself in darkness, Vachoshek kara laila. Darkness is Laila. And when he went out, we're getting ready to celebrate Pesach. When did he go out? Laila. So then who does he send? That woman. And what does that woman do? The death of the world. She is called the Melech Hamavis, the angel of death, which is a female, from which it says her feet go down to death, which is exactly why they prohibited women from going to funerals and halakhic circles, They prohibited women from going to funerals or to making eye contact with women at funerals. Why? Because they said the angel of death is there with the woman. Because they're a root of it. All these deep mysteries going on here. So, this fierce serpent wants to prevent its arousal. Woe to the world that is nourished at that time by righteousness, which is Malchus, separated from Zampin, that is justice. That means that woe to the world that conceives there is no upper world. Woe to the world that has lost connection to the upper world. That means their forms are no longer being illuminated by the supernal oil and the supernal fire from Atzilus and Berea, which illuminate those Kalim in order to provide illumination to the world. Israel's a light to the nations. Woe at that time, because then the world becomes run by that serpent that talks to you, which is your forms, called the seven royal houses of idolatry, and it seeks to spill its seed in the female. The female is reality, and so the serpent defiled the woman. What is the serpent? It's our own perceptions. Our perceptions then defile the female, which is this existence. What can I take as a witness to you, and what can I liken to you? It says it in book 1. I take what as a witness to you every day? Because this reality is the witness and likeness to the Holy One, blessed be He. And when we project our forms onto it, we entirely defile it. Because then reality is not determined by the measurement of its kedusha, but now it's determined about how I feel. How am I feeling today? Am I emotionally stressed out? What is the limit of my knowledge? It's worth something because I think it's worth something. What are my desires, my motives? What are my spiritual attainments? This is worth something because I have a higher spiritual attainment. This is worth less because I have a lower spiritual attainment. However, all of these things serve to defile that level. So, many legions of demons aroused in the world, and many righteous people depart from the world. That is to say, many demons aroused in the world, and then people start to die. Because it's written, man after his desires, demon after demon. Desires is one of your forms, desire form, because all of a sudden you're interacting with reality and now you're manipulative. Now you're judging because you're having a bad day. So you're projecting all this ain hara, all this evil eye, all this lashon hara in your mind. Your heart wicked, thoughts just going out of control. Judgment this, judgment that. What if this, what if that? Producing shadim after shadim after shadim after shadim. And the result? Death. From which they said that lashon hara is akin to murder. Spilling someone's blood is akin to murder. And it's also why they said, if you see, that's why it says, you will not stand idly by and be a gossip monger. So it says, you will not sit idly by while your brother's blood is shed, and you will not be a gossip monger. Because to even see it happening and not do anything about it is to bear the sin of it. Which means that if you see somebody speaking lashon hara, which is akin to murder and spilling blood, and you don't say anything, you are complicit in that. You don't do anything, you're complicit in that. And if that's the case with the everyday person, how much more so is it when you see the desecration of the Torah? Or you see a Torah scholar's honor being ripped to shreds, and you just sit there. It's as if you shed that person's blood. So then it says, many righteous people depart from the world. All this is because the male has left the female. This is because of a separation of the zivug. And justice does not approach this righteousness, because the rule becomes ruled by two different qualities, this back-to-back pairing. Of this it is written, but sometimes ruin comes for want of judgment, because a want of mishpat. Sometimes ruin, sometimes destruction occurs because of this desire for the mishpat, because it should have been justice. But what justice is served when you project all of this lashon hara and ayin hara all over reality? What justice is served when you sit idly by and watch your brother's blood be shed and do nothing? What justice is that? There is no justice. And therefore it says of that matter, but sometimes ruin comes from want of judgment. This is why it tells you not to pay for another person's sin. What it means is not to become complicit in the sin. For example, when we hear someone speaking a bunch of lashon hara, or a person has a very evil world viewpoint, ayin hara, and then you become involved with that, then you become a partaker of lashon hara, and you become a partaker of ayin hara, and then immediately you come to ruin. Why? Because you've automatically caused a disconnection between the zivug of the upper and lower worlds, and then that in turn causes these karmic consequences to come against you. Because now Malchus is going to avenge herself. This is the verse that says, my soul hates. And that serpent, which is reality, we call it karma, some people call it karma, arouses itself because it says people come to ruin for a want of judgment. And the same thing happens, a want of judgment. Why? What's the key? Because of a want of judgment this happens, because you did not do what was righteous. You did not do true justice. When you saw the lashon hara happening, when you saw someone's blood being spilled in front of you, you saw the Torah scholar being desecrated, you saw the Torah being desecrated in front of you, you did nothing. Where was the justice? No justice. And because you did not bring about that justice, that blood is on your hands. Because you might as well have been there when people were during the Holocaust, and you might have been able to save people from being maniacally killed, but you didn't. Malchus demands that justice, because if you don't manifest the quality of justice, which is to say to cause the zivug between the male and the female, then the female will enact the judgment on her own, because she will be avenged. She will avenge herself. And if she does that, she will become a serpent, a very vicious serpent. And so you see people's lives get absolutely annihilated. Disease, which is what? Nega, which is a saruf of oneg. And the lowest of all level is called plague. And she causes disease. All of a sudden you become sick, your family becomes sick, and you wonder why this is happening. Because there are karmic consequences. And a lot of this has to deal with a lack of justice. Because something was going on. And I get it. A lot of people are afraid. I don't want to get involved with this or that or this or that or this or that. You don't have a choice, halakhically. So, which means that justice, which is Zorim departs from righteousness, which is so important not to cause justice to depart from righteousness. You must maintain justice. Because we are the conduit for the upper world. If we don't inhibit the justice, where is the justice going to come from? The universe is going to have to enact it itself. And if it does it on that end, then it's going to arouse that supernal serpent. And if the supernal serpent has to do it, it's going to be harsh decrees. And this has been the failings of many great Hachamim, many great Rabbanan, many great sages. They have died and suffered horrifically because of this thing that I'm telling you, a lack of justice. This is exactly what happened to Rab Eliezer when he was sick in the bed. And Akiba came to him. And he said, Akiba, why didn't you come to serve me? And he said, I had things to do. And Akiba said, teach me Torah. And he said, oh, I wondered if you would die a natural death. Now I know that you will die the worst of them all. And he cursed him. Why? Because cursing Akiba for being a selfish delinquent was justice. That was justice. What was an injustice is looking at the person who taught him the Torah, and while he's sickly dying in bed, he's off doing his own thing. Where's the justice? No justice. Instead, he came to take more. Instead of helping him in his sickbed, he said, no, I'll just come take more light from you. Teach me more Torah. Teach me more Torah. Completely selfish. Where was the justice? No justice. That is exactly what causes the serpent to arouse. And how many of Rabbi Akiva's students died because of this? 24,000 the serpent killed. Why? Because there was no justice. And when there is no justice, there will be vengeance. And Malkuth is not mitigated, because you need to mitigate that vengeance. It's a serious word. You should really contemplate, what does vengeance mean? And understand that when that serpent is aroused for vengeance. It needs to be mitigated. You mitigate that through justice. When you inherently know something is wrong, do the right thing. Human beings' opinions are far less of a threat than the supernal things, the Holy One, the Malachim, the Beis Din and Shemaim, the serpent. Have no fear of human beings that poop themselves and pee themselves, whose destiny is worms. There's no reason to fear them, and their opinions mean nothing. So we must mitigate it with righteousness. Is fed from another place, namely left without right, which is severe judgments. King Solomon said of this, all things have I seen in the days of my vanity. There's a just man who perishes in his righteousness. And why did the just man perish? Because in his righteousness. Because being a righteous person means nothing if you do not use the quality of justice. It's even worse. You're telling me you knew what the Torah said, you knew the Torah was from God, but you sat idly by and watched a person just desecrate the Torah in front of you, and you were okay with that? Even if you were righteous, what good is your righteousness without justice? Because you cause a division, and so you perish. And in the days of my vanity, that is to say, at the time where my deeds and actions would mean nothing. Nothing. Because what good are your deeds if the end of those deeds is annihilation through vengeance? Without justice, all the righteousness in the world can't save you. The reason is that justice has departed from righteousness. You must heed what it is that the Zohar is telling us. It is so critical because it will save you agony. It will save you unnecessary hardship. It will save you plagues on your families. You will not interact with the quality called nezah, the plague. You will experience oneg, joy and bliss, which is the highest level. There's no higher than oneg and no lower than nezah than plague. Okay, so the reason that justice has departed from righteousness, Malchus remains as left without right. For that reason is considered sometimes ruin comes from a want of justice. We must do the right thing. We must cause a proper zivug upon him. When you see something inherently wrong, do not stand idly by. There is a time to understand when you're interfering in someone's karmic consequence, meaning Hashem has the Beis Din and Shemaim has decreed something, and something is happening, and that's happening, and you're not to be involved. There are many different instances about that. If you see a person who has done a bunch of drugs and lived a criminal life, and they're on the streets, does that mean you should pick that person up and put that in your house? No, that is not the quality of justice. Because a lot of the people who do things like that, especially if you're a drug addict, and especially if you've been stealing and doing things like this, that is consequence of action. And the justice is the very thing that's happening to them. It would not be in that situation had it not been that case. However, though, justice does come into play, and as I've just said, you will not stand by while your brother's blood is shed. That means when you see someone desecrating the Torah, you see someone desecrating the honor of a Torah scholar, speaking Lashon Hara, and all of these things against Hashem, so on and so forth, and you know that it's wrong, then you must bring about and enable that quality of justice. It must be redeemed, because every time that it's not redeemed, then we fulfill exactly what it says. Sometimes ruin comes for a want of justice, and you end up becoming complicit in that person's sins because your ears have heard their words. Your curiosity of your Yetzer Hara to entice, ooh, I just want to know a little more. Let me get some of the drama. Let me drink from this bitter cup because I like the taste of it. I like to know all the little ins and outs of everything. But I'm going to be quiet. I want to be complicit. Then that serpent comes against you because that blood is in your system. That blood is on your hands. And this is the drinking of blood. Where the halakha comes, are we allowed to drink people's blood? No. Why? Because spilling of blood is speaking Lashon Hara. And when you take those words in your ears, it is as if you've drinking that blood. And when you contemplate them in your mind, it is as if you have defiled yourself with that blood. This is why it says, my servant is blind and deaf and dumb. Why? Blind to evil, deaf to evil, dumb to not speak evil. Okay. Come and see when there is a lofty righteous man in the world, loving the Holy One, blessed be he. Even when righteousness is roused on his own without justice, the world can still be saved for his sake. This person is called the Holy Luminary, and he exists in every single generation, because in every single generation there's going to be a physical manifestation of the Keter of Yisod, the manifestation of the bestowing factor, which is Keter, bestowing factor of the righteous one, Yisod, which is the foundation of the world, Sadiq Yisad Ha'olam. Righteous one is the foundation of the world. For the Holy One, blessed be he, delights in his glory, and he fears no judgment. When this righteous man is not alive, people are afraid even of justice and cannot handle it, not to mention righteousness. And he has no reason to fear judgment. Why fear judgment from human beings? Human beings poop and pee themselves. They're what, here, 60 years, 70 years, they get Alzheimer's, all these crazy diseases going on there. I don't even remember what they did last week. Why are you afraid of these people? And you should be afraid of the one who writes these deeds down in the book of remembrance. At first, King David said, examine me, Hashem, and prove me, for I am not afraid of any judgment, not even of righteousness. Moreover, I am attached to it, since David was a chariot to Malchus, called righteousness. It is written, as for me, I will behold your face in righteousness. Tzedach. With righteousness, assuredly, I am not afraid to face its judgments, because he was instituting the quality called justice. And most of the Tehillim are cry out for what? Justice. Why sleep you, Hashem? All of these other different qualities are a call for justice, to cause a zivug between mishpat and tzedek. That's it. So most of the Tehillim, we say, oh, David HaMelech, he's crying out, he's saying, take vengeance on my enemies, do this and do that. Why? Because he sees there's a lack of justice. A lack of justice because wicked people sat idly by while evil propagated in the world. And so then at the end of this, the righteous one, who is David HaMelech, had to cry out to God, cry out to Shemayim, to instill and enact justice, to soothe down righteousness, so that the world would not become annihilated, which it very well did many different times. And so David HaMelech would not see the destruction of the temple. He would also not see its building, but he would not see the destruction and diaspora of the Jewish people, not while he was alive, because he maintained righteousness. And he did this through mitigation of justice. Mishpat, the justice, soothed that serpent, the righteousness. After he sinned, he was afraid even of justice, as is written, and enter not into justice with your servant. Come and see, when this righteousness, tzedach, is mitigated by justice, it is called tzedakah, righteousness, with a feminine suffix, because it becomes a female to Zayin, that is called justice, and receives chasadim from it. The world is sweetened with chesed, love, and filled with it, as it is written, he loves righteousness, tzedakah, and mishpat, judgment, or justice. The earth is full of goodness of Hashem, chesed of Hashem. So these chasadim and gevuros that spread and enter out through the yisad of Zayin and enter into the female, when chesed enters into the female, it becomes sweetened, soothed. That means when we have acts of loving kindness and we do things that are righteous and invoke justice, real justice, not judgment, justice, right? What is the difference? For example, if you see a homeless person on the street, doesn't mean you go there and say, well, you're being punished by God, so let me punish you as well. And you start kicking them or throw water on them or desecrate them. Even if you see a quality of deen playing out, doesn't mean that you need to partake yourself in that quality of deen. That's not your place. It's not your place to uphold that, because it's not justice. But if you see a person who's starving and they're legitimately starving, and you don't give them water and you don't give them food, then that blood's on you. If your enemy is hungry, give him something to eat. If your enemy is thirsty, give them something to drink. Even if that's your enemy. But you don't give him food to eat and drink, where is the justice? You walk by that person, you leave that person there to suffer, and you know better? There it goes. That it causes the judgment for lack of judgment. And then those karmic debts become on you. We call those tests. And we say, wow, this is happening. These horrible things are happening in my life. I wonder why it's happening in my life. Well, you should analyze. Where were the moments where you were exposed to something that should have required justice and you did not enact that justice? Because if you truly, unbiasedly scrutinize that detail, you will find where many of your tikkuns are at. Many of the tikkuns that you must correct in yourself and the midot. The tikkuns to your midot are often found in the lack of justice. Oftentimes. Because this is the lack of justice shows a lack of character traits, a deficiency in your midot, your qualities, your attributes. So, I bear testimony about myself that I was distressed about the world all my life, lest it would meet judgments of righteousness and be burned by its flames. He's terrified. David the Melech is fully aware that the entire world could be annihilated because of this. This also hints to the idea of why the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Why did they say the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed? Baseless hatred. Baseless hatred. Which again is this quality of Ayin Hara, Lashon Hara. Baseless hatred. No justice. No correction. No love towards the person who's being afflicted, and caring enough about the person doing the action to correct them. Because truly, if someone loves you, they're going to move to try to correct you. Not to correct you, not to judge you, to correct you. That's mishpat. That's justice. Rachamim is at the end of that. Mercy is at the end of that. And what justice is for the victim who suffered such insult, injury, shame, humiliation, degradation, while everyone sits complicit. So this causes the world to become consumed by flames. And so people become absolutely annihilated. Absolutely annihilated. The amount of karmic consequences that come, as I said, is disease. All of a sudden you're sick. All of a sudden family members are sick because it's seeking to destroy you, your household, everything. And we're talking about karma. We call this karma. The universe does this because we have to understand how this reality works. So it says, she eats and wipes her mouth, and from now on after my demise, the world will behave according to the deeds of everyone. As is the pit, so is its depth. that his deeds are repaid measure for measure. Heed what the Zohar is telling us. A fool hates correction. A wise person seeks after it. In this generation, there are righteous people, but they are too insignificant to rise up. They're insignificant because they don't want to invoke justice. And what good is righteousness without justice? For righteousness without justice is destruction. What was the point of your righteousness? What was the point of your Torah learning if you never invoked it? What was the purpose of making yourself a conduit of bestowal for the light of Hashem if you never used it, if you never bestowed it? To do the right thing when the time comes to do the right thing. Because they are too insignificant. In this generation, there are righteous people, but they're too insignificant to rise up and protect the people of the generation from the four directions of the world, which are called the four spirits. The spirit of the south, the spirit of the north, the spirit of the east, the spirit of the west. And this is a very, very important thing. This lesson is in Ha'azinu. We're at the very end of the Zohar. And they're beginning to tell us very intricate matters about the pairings. What does panim v'panim mean? Back-to-back pairing mean? We hear some of these concepts in the Lurianic Kabbalah. It's completely pointless to study the Lurianic Kabbalah without the Zohar. And as I've said it before about the Lurianic Kabbalah, it's all cursed. All of that stuff was recovered through Kabbalah Masit. I have the exact safers. I have entire sections talking about how they had to use magic, basically. Kabbalah Masit, right? The Western world will call it magic. It's not really magic, but whatever. Theoretical workings. They had to use Kabbalah Masit to recover all of these writings. A lot of these writings were retrieved through the desecration of great sages' graves. They exhumed their graves to take their writings out of them. That's why all those who study Lurianic Kabbalah in this generation know nothing, because they're cursed. The highest rate of schizophrenia is in Ashkenazi community. It's for a reason, because all that stuff is cursed. No one has the Kedusha in this generation to be studying that stuff, or the merit. If you haven't studied the Zohar, no, definitely not. If someone's guided you, that's one thing, but nonetheless, this is an important thing. So they hear, the reason why I'm saying this is because you hear this term, back-to-back pairings, front-to-front pairings. They only understand intellectually, okay, in their brain, front, back. They have no idea what any of this means. How does it apply to reality? What is a real sod? But we've learned. So this is going to conclude our lesson for today. This lesson is incredibly, incredibly important. Take away truly. Don't come and see. Take the diamond that has been given to you and take the diamond back home with you. Don't simply understand it intellectually or hear it with your ears and go off and forget what you've seen and what you've heard. But take the diamond that you've been given back with you and contemplate how these things in reality work, because these are very important secrets to help this world bring tikkun olam, to help bring the correction, not just ourselves, to others, and to see how our deeds, we will be paid back measure for measure. And the depth of the pit is the depth of our deeds. And understand that righteousness means nothing without justice. And how important justice is to mitigate that quality of righteousness. So when you see something bad happening, do the right thing. That concludes it. Blessings to everybody. As David HaMelech said, open my eyes and I behold the wonders of your Torah. Shalom and salam.